The first time I ever talked about Nick Fuentes on this channel was the day after January 6th. And this is what I said. As far as the people justifying the violence on Capitol Hill, I see very little of that, to be honest. The only people who I've seen do that are the, what would you call them? The cockroaches on the alt-right, the white supremacist people, Nick Fuentes and the like. Now, I happen to know, because it was me, that I didn't know anything about Nick Fuentes at the time. I was just using him as a stand-in for right-wing extremism. And so all I was doing there was just virtue signaling. Now, I would hope that me saying something as malicious and deranged as calling another human being a cockroach, which you could argue you should never do, lest you want to poison your psyche and soul. I would hope that just because I said something like that in that cringy manner, that would not prevent people from having an open mind to hearing what I have to say now. And I believe we should hold this same standard for someone like Nick Fuentes.
The whole essence of Christianity is that we do love everybody and we are charitable towards everybody. Now, charity doesn't mean we gotta airlift them into our community. Not saying that, but I don't necessarily, I think it almost inverts the Christian message to say, the strangers can go fuck off. You know, if we don't have any love, if we have any leftover love, we'll give it to them. But we really just love our own race and our own people. And don't get me wrong, I do love our own race and our own people, but I don't think that the answer to liberalism, which says fuck your own people, love aliens, is to say fuck aliens, only love your own people. It's like love everybody. Love everybody. We have to be stewards of our country and our community, but we also should have love for people, and we should be charitable to them in ways that we can, in ways that are sensible, in ways that aren't suicidal. You know, there's like a middle ground between saying we have to invite the whole world versus we have to exterminate the whole world. And the middle is like, you know, we have to preserve ourselves. We don't have to commit suicide. We can help people, but we don't have to do it in a suicidal way. Anyone that has any genuine racial hatred, we have to just say there's something wrong with you. I understand not wanting to live around black people. I get it. And I understand when you see what black people do, some of them, I understand hating that. But this whole like autistic racial, like actual racialism, actual racial militant hatred, it is like a freak show. Because that comes from an emotional place. It is one thing to say that, like, there are whites and blacks. Black people clearly are not on our level of development, and that's why they're struggling. That's why they're not integrating well, and that's why there are these problems. Like, it's one thing to say that clinically, and it's one thing to see what they do and get frustrated by it and get angry about it. It's a whole other thing to have this, like, persistent, like, antipathy for vast groups of people. That is just like a low IQ, dysfunctional thing. And everything, oh, well, but that doesn't make you mad. It's like, yeah, it makes me mad. I'm not filled with like racial hatred for an entire group. Even the Jews, even though Jewish people have ruined my life in many ways and like they do horrible things, I don't have a hatred for them as a group. And I could say nice things about them, you know? But that comes from being a Christian. That's the kind of peace and that's the kind of disposition that you can only have if you love God, if you truly have love in your heart for people.
Now, the reason I am picking these two clips in particular is because I assume if you're watching this, you're already familiar with the endless amount of immoral, degenerate, and creepy behavior that Nick Fuentes has engaged in and encouraged in his cult-like following. If you want a comprehensive list of valid reasons to despise Nick Fuentes, Chris Brunette did a 33,000-word investigative report documenting all of the worst behaviors of Fuentes and his followers, including his association with certain adults who did certain things with teenage boys. So yes, even in those clips, it's clear that Nick Fuentes is, by any normal person's definition, a racist. If you say that it's irresponsible for white families to live around black people as such, when you don't even have any family yourself, you're an unserious fool.
And I will tell you this as plainly as possible. I don't want to live around black people. I just don't. It would be irresponsible if I had a wife and kids to live near black people. It just would be. And that's not to say that every black person is violent. It's not to say that every black person is the same way. But we watch the news, we read the papers. When you drive downtown in Chicago, you know who you got to look out for and worry about when you're thinking about whether you're going to get carjacked, when you're worried about catching a stray bullet, when you're worried about who's going to pull up on the side of the road and literally shove a rifle in your face and steal your iPhone or shoot you point blank, execution style in Lincoln Park. We know who's doing it. I don't want to live near them. I don't want to be near them. They make me nervous.
The issue is, if you only pay attention to the objectively ridiculous and immoral things that Nick Fuentes has said, you're going to have an incomplete understanding of why people are listening to him. I have talked to the left-wing streamer Destiny multiple times, and if I had only ever seen the clips of him saying objectively sociopathic nonsense, I'd be very ignorant as to all of the reasons why many intelligent people continue to pay attention to him. Like all people, Nick Fuentes has the capacity to be a deeply immoral and destructive person, and there's no shortage of evidence of that. But it's also the case, I believe, that if the best parts of Nick Fuentes were allowed to develop, then he could actually be a very real pro-social force. People vastly underestimate how useful it is to have someone squarely on the far right repeatedly telling his audience that broad-based racial hatred is, quote, a low IQ freak show, even if he seems to contradict himself at times in other unhinged rants. The best thing that a hypothetically pro-social version of Nick Fuentes has going for him is the degree to which his Catholic identity is central to his character, which is still warped and racist, but at least shows some potential for redemption.
My Jewish neighbor's son converted to Catholicism as a grower because of you.
All right. Hey, love to hear it. You know, look, I like Jews. I really do. I just don't trust them, and I need them to be Christian. I have a lot of Jewish friends, and almost all of them are Christian, actually. They're ethnically Jewish, but they're Catholic. I have a couple Jewish friends that are not Catholic, but I only tell the truth. You know how I feel about Jews, but they are really funny. They are pretty intelligent and crafty. So they're, you know, look, I'm not going to lie. They're fun to be around. As long as they're not trying to kill you, as long as they don't hate your race. And I don't necessarily trust them. You know, I don't fully trust them. And I think some of them are going to hell. But, yeah, but they're pretty, you know, got to give the devil their due, even if they're the literal devil or the figurative devil. I appreciate it. We love them. We love all people.
Speaking of Jews, this is the thing that Nick Fuentes will have the hardest time trying to avoid letting consume him and become truly a demonic force for evil. For example, the whole pro-Hitler shtick is pathetic and ridiculous.
Who would you rather have run our country right now, your wife or Hitler?
Hitler! Of course. Of course.
And as insane and weird as Hassan Piker putting a literal hammer and sickle in his background. And to the degree that Nick engages in Holocaust denial, he is doing as much societal harm as people who deny evolution or deny the Maoist or Stalinist genocides. But even more practically, Nick's criticisms of Israel, which is a country in need of being criticized, they're watered down because he gets hyper-focused on people's Jewishness, like with Dave Smith.
And I think that Dave Smith is somebody that because he's Jewish, because he's libertarian, they have selected him as a convenient spokesperson for it because he doesn't really have a problem with Jews and their Jewishness. He doesn't really talk about the whole fifth column aspect of it. He talks about a very narrow aspect of it, which is there's this Israel lobby and they're sort of influential and they're driving us to war. That's one small selection of it.
So you think, just to clarify, you think he's like a psychological operation?
Yeah, effectively, yes.
Okay.
And I don't think he's doing that knowingly, but I think that they're creating the bounds of the debate by having him be the spokesperson because
Who is choosing him as a spokesperson? I mean,
Joe Rogan,
I
Piers
could not
Morgan.
disagree with that more. I just want to say that I patently disagree with you on this one.
The idea that Dave Smith is secretly working on behalf of Israel indirectly by being one of the principal voices turning public sentiment against Israel is ridiculous and a little deranged. But to say that Nick Fuentes doesn't make valid criticism of Israel is delusional in and of itself. He's clearly very knowledgeable and he knows how to articulate himself, and that is why people like Charlie Kirk appear to be too cowardly to debate him.
I say, if you truly believe in open debate in the marketplace of ideas, will you ever be willing to debate Nick Fuentes, or will you wait until his movement forces you to adopt his talking points, as we've seen already?
You know, it's funny. I personally do not give a platform to bad faith actors. And I had a whole open about this. And by the way, a really important thing is not to lie and to not bear false testimony. It's fine. I'll answer your question. You know, you said, I want to have a question about turning point events. And you obviously lied about your question. Doesn't surprise me because you have deceit. But you know what? Honestly, I'm asked that question all the time. I don't platform trolls. And I don't platform and I don't discuss people or I don't debate with people that are not good faith actors. And
You debate Maoists and people who champion.
they can keep on yelling at how successful we are and our big events and well over 1,000 employees. But there's a lot of jealousy out there. We build, they complain. We succeed, we win. They blame the Jews. Thank you. Next question.
Now, I reserve the right to change my opinion on Nick Fuentes at any time and make a sequel to this video called Why Nobody Hates Nick Fuentes More Than I Do. Because despite my belief in the possibility of Nick becoming a better person than he is now, there's plenty of evidence to suggest that he'll just continue to foster the worst kinds of behavior and attitudes in his impressionable audience. Only time will tell, and by the grace of God, it might be better for everyone. I don't know. Until then, good luck and Godspeed.